Today we're doing things a little differently. We're combining the news and views, and we are going straight to an interview on the past period in Syria and Lebanon. Here's the interview.
All right. I'm ready now.
Yeah, so on Socialist News and Views, we let folks introduce themselves. Can you tell our audience who you are?
Yes, sure. My name is Jihad Jneid. I'm from Tripoli, Lebanon. I'm a video journalist and a producer. I've been covering the Middle East for almost 10 years. Uh, like the main stories that I've been covering for the past 10 years was the rise and the fall of ISIS between Syria and Iraq from 2014-15 up until 19. The migration from the Middle East to Europe, the irregular migration, the war on Lebanon, the Israeli war on Lebanon, and yeah, it's mostly between Syria, Iraq, Lebanon, and different places in the region. That's
Well,
quickly who am I.
well, thanks so much for your time. I appreciate you coming. When you and I first connected, it was the end of last year, 2024, and we were going to speak about Syria. We never got that interview organized at the time, but I'm still interested to hear what you experienced on the ground. I know you said that you were able to go to Syria shortly after, just hours after the fall of the Assad regime. Can you talk a bit about that experience of being inside Syria after the fall of Assad? You know, how long you were there, and what did you witness as things progressed?
Yeah, so when the Assad regime fell, it was right after the ceasefire in Lebanon. So I arrived to Syria like I would say a few hours after the fall of the Assad regime. And definitely you're talking about a 54 years old regime that collapsed. So basically it was mostly celebrations, like people all over Syria
Mm-hmm.
celebrating, and like it was I would say it was like a massive wedding, let's say.
Right. Yep.
Yeah.
I believe it.
So, I mean, it's the first time that I covered like falling regimes. So
Mm.
I can go I can go like with a quick recap. First of all, when we crossed, knowing that we went like by land, we crossed the borders from Lebanon to Syria. So the first thing was that there was no borders, almost no borders in the Syrian side. But there were some like armed people who were there,
Mm.
but they weren't operating the borders. They were just welcoming people in.
Okay. So
Yeah.
they didn't even
So
stop. They didn't even really stop you then, or they just
no,
waved you
they
through, or
actually what was interesting is that we had a key person, like a contact, who was
mm.
waiting for us on the other side of the borders, and we were meeting him. And like these fighters were just like few hundred meters away from us, and they were able to see us. So they approached and they wanted to make sure that our contact, which they didn't know that is our contact, uh, was not like trying to bother us or whatever. They were like, now there is freedom in Syria. You can go in, you can do whatever you want, you can speak about whatever you want, you
Mm.
can film whatever you want. We have no restrictions in this new Syria. Actually, they approached to make sure that this guy is not bothering us. So we had to explain to them like, no, he's not. He's our contact. He's our friend, and thank you for welcoming us. So it was more like a massive, a huge wedding where everyone was celebrating.
Nice.
That's the first impression for sure. Everything related to the Syrian regime was probably burnt or thrown or on the floor or like in the streets.
Hmm.
Military, the former army uniforms on the streets. You will find some weapons on the streets. Damaged tanks, massive photos or statues for Bashar al-Assad and Hafez al-Assad destroyed on the streets. Yeah, that was I mean, I would say the first week was mostly about celebrations. People were kind of drunk and
Right.
celebrating. Yeah, it was, and which is totally understandable.
Hmm.
Like coming from a dictatorship, and like especially to us, like especially after what happened in the Syrian revolution, like no one was expecting that something like this can happen anytime soon. So
Right.
it was a surprise for everyone.
I bet it was an amazing experience to be there.
It was a historic experience. I'm extremely grateful to be able to witness this with my own eyes and to be able to document a historic moment like this, definitely.
And so you were there for a couple weeks right after the fall, right? Or
Yeah. I went to Syria for a couple of weeks, but since that time I'm back and forth to Syria covering different stories.
so that first week was all celebration and everything. What have you seen since then going on? What's been the progress now? What are people saying now about the situation?
Look, it was definitely celebrations all over the place in the first week, but knowing the Syrian context, we were tackling what we were expecting, kind of, because
Mm,
on the second or third day maximum, like after covering the capital and the celebrations in the street, etc. Uh, like I proposed immediately to go to the Alawite community
mm,
and to try to know how they are feeling, what they are thinking, how do they see things happening, and uh, from the very early beginning, people were like paranoid. They were freaking out. What's gonna
mm,
happen next? So that was our first, let's say, task
mm-hmm.
to shed the light over the minorities and to see what they are feeling and how are things gonna go from there. I think we were right in this choice because like it just took few weeks up until the clashes or whatever we have to call it started happening with the minorities.
Right.
Uh, we know about the coast massacres that happened, where the
Mm-hmm.
majority of Alawites are, and afterwards the clashes with the Druze are happening till now.
Mm-hmm.
There are Druze areas that are still under, like, let's say, siege from the so-called government forces by the time. And recently, the clashes with the Kurds are happening,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't think, it's just like a very personal opinion. I can be completely wrong,
Oh, right,
but
right.
I don't think that's it. It's happening by coincidence that like we have one minority after the other being taken over or massacred. I don't think it's
Mm-hmm.
by coincidence that the events with the Alawites happened right after they finished or they reached a result. Let's say the clashes with the Druze happened,
Mm-hmm.
and after it's stabilized a little bit, now events with the Kurds are happening. I like logically speaking, I cannot see it like something organic happening, and I think
Right.
that it's part of a plan or whatever we have to call it. I cannot confirm anything, especially that I'm a journalist. I need conversation, but at the
Right.
same time, this is a pattern that we need to take into consideration.
Well,
That's my opinion.
have they has
Um,
has the new Syrian government gotten control of those? I mean, I know that they were talking about like they were gonna have they gotten control of those attacks on minorities, or is it still pretty widespread at this time? Do you know?
At the meantime, it's a bit more controlled.
Okay.
They were able to take control over the Alawite community, kind of.
Okay.
Um, but with the Druze and the Kurds, it's not the case yet.
Okay.
The events with the Druze have been happening for like more than a month by now.
Right.
But there are like groups within the Druze that have been formed, and they are in control of the inside, like internally of their own communities, but
Sure.
they are suffering from a siege where products or whatever is not being able to come in and go
Mm,
out. The case with the Kurds till now is still different. The Kurds are more organized. They have their militant groups. They've been fighting for years and years. They have much more experience than like a like a sectarian group or a religious group. The case is
sure.
a bit different. But yeah, this would be like a, let's say, like a general recap to what's happening at the meantime, especially with
Sure.
minorities.
Well, yeah. Well, I know one of my last podcasts I recorded recently was about the longest held political prisoner in France, George Ibrahim Abdallah. Uh, he was removed from Lebanon and told never to return to France. Um, he's a longtime uh, fighter in the struggle for Palestinian freedom. Um, now he's back in Lebanon. What are people saying about his release in Lebanon? What does this return of George Abdallah mean? Does it strengthen the resolve to fight for the Palestinian cause? Does it change anything?
Look, I think that the fact that George Abdallah is among us now again after 41 years of being in prison, knowing that there are a lot of question marks on his case and
Mm.
how he was how his case was dealt by the court.
Oh yeah,
But I think like the current situation of the left in the region and like in Lebanon, I think in all the world is a bit like shaky.
yep.
This gives kind of like motivation to the leftists
Mm.
in Lebanon. We need to take into consideration that George is is really old by now.
Right.
He's super in shape and super energetic, and yeah, but we need to keep in mind that he's really old, and he's
Mm-hmm.
coming after 41 years of being imprisoned. I don't think we need to expect a lot from George, but
Sure.
it's an achievement uh for like his strength for him
Right.
and for all the left, and
He's a
it shows
symbol.
like yeah, exactly, like the amount of strength and power that George holds mentally
Mm.
and ideologically is a thing that we read in stories or in references or but we've never witnessed,
Right.
especially in Lebanon in my generation or younger. So I think George is a great motivation for the revolutionary movement at the meantime, but we have to limit our expectations. We are people here in this
Right.
regions who have been like facing one how do I say this in English? Um, yeah, like when you always have expectations and you fall, so it's
Disappointment.
kind of like demotivational,
Yeah, like
disappointment. Yeah, so we don't have
disillusionment,
more
disappointment. Yeah.
disappointments.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You have a
So
lot of work. The
yeah,
left
but
has a
it's
lot of
a
work in Lebanon, huh?
yeah, yeah, in all the region, in all the world.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. That's true. Um,
Yeah, and
well,
it's something, and I think just one thing before
yeah,
we
yeah,
jump
yeah,
to
yeah.
another point. I think like the fact that kind of the left in Europe and in the United States is a bit like the situation of the left is a bit better than here. The
Mm,
solidarity movement with George Abdallah, and this is what he said in several like press releases or interviews, that when resistant becomes like the bill he's putting on whatever the state that's taking him becomes higher than him staying in prison,
right.
then it's the time that he will be released. This is
Right.
the time where this regimes will think of releasing him, because it's damaging more than successful to them. And the solidarity movement and the solidarity with George Abdallah really increased in the past year, especially after the 7th of October,
Mm.
where usually there were like tens or maximum couple of hundreds of people going to protest, like to show solidarity with George Abdallah in front of the prison where he was in France.
Right.
And this number increased a lot in the last year. It became like a couple of thousands up until it reached 7,000, 8,000 people. And according to George Abdullah, this was the main reason that, like, to him, the solidarity of the people is the reason why he's free today.
Yeah, and I know he
And
said
I
it.
think this has something to do with the situation with the leftists, especially in the West.
Oh yeah, 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 and because he said I think it was either him or one of his comrades was saying that previously the judge had said he couldn't be released because there would be like unrest in the streets or whatever, and then when he was released, their reason was that if he isn't released, then there'll be unrest in the streets. I
Yeah,
thought that was kind of that kind of highlights what you're
exactly.
talking about. That this is about the pressure building. It's about the increase in activism around the case and making it harder for them to keep them.
100%.
Yeah, unsustainable. And he talked about Macron having to change his plans in Lebanon and having to change his plans in Tunisia when he was traveling because of the
Yeah,
size of the protests, and that was another one.
100%.
So, and then just another thing on Lebanon, I had read a piece on Al Jazeera that was August 10th, and it said, "quote Lebanon's government has announced a timeline for Hezbollah's disarmament, saying the military would set out a plan to bring
Good luck with that. Yes.
all weapons under state authority before the end of 2025." End quote. Is that going to happen? Is that something that's possible? What would that look like in Lebanon to do that?
Look, it can happen to disarm Hezbollah in particular.
Mm.
I mean, I don't see it happening, but theoretically speaking, it can happen. But at the same time, it's not that, in my opinion, historically speaking, it's not about Hezbollah.
Mm.
You know, so Hezbollah existed after the occupation. There was no Hezbollah before the occupation.
Right.
Okay, this is one. Two, before Hezbollah, there was different resisting groups
Mm.
in Lebanon.
Yep.
And the people of South, where it's the majority of the supporters of Hezbollah, were not Hezbollah. They were supporters to previous resistance groups.
Sure.
So even if Hezbollah was disarmed or whatever happens to Hezbollah, another group is gonna happen just like Hezbollah as a result of of different previous groups. The resistance is something that you cannot like remove from people,
Right.
even if you change the names of the organizations or do
Right.
whatever you want to do. At
Yep.
the end, resistance is the result of an occupation or aggression or whatever.
Yep.
So even if the government believes that going with this is gonna work, and even, which I highly doubt,
Mm.
if they succeeded in disarming Hezbollah in whatever deal it is, this is not like ending a struggle. This is starting another struggle, in my opinion.
I mean,
And
Hezbollah still
yeah,
has
so
quite a lot of
again,
I mean, they're still pretty popular, right? Hezbollah is still quite popular in their area,
yeah, sure,
right? So this would be
yeah.
difficult. That's part of what will make it difficult too, right? Is that they still have quite a lot of popularity in like that area where they
I
exist.
honestly believe that the state is dealing with Hezbollah. I mean, when we're talking
Mm.
about the Lebanese state, the shape of the state is very new
Mm.
to Lebanon. It never existed in this shape before, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I mean, when we're talking about this, we need to see like what are the goals. How are the Lebanese people being affected? Am I with disarming different groups?
Right.
Yes.
Right.
am I affected by am I affected by the missiles that Hezbollah own? As a Lebanese, no, because I mean the
Right.
excuse that's being used for this the propaganda at the meantime that Hezbollah used this weapon internally,
Right.
Hezbollah, blah blah blah, which is correct, and which am I against, kind of.
Right.
But the weapon that's the Israelis want to be want to be disarmed, like to be taken, and not only taken, to be destroyed. Does it affect me as a Lebanese? No. Am I with
Right.
disarming? Definitely yes. But all the different militias in Lebanon, they have this weapon,
Right.
which is which can be used internally easily. When we're talking about different weapon, like okay, I took you to a very internal like corridor.
Yep.
So we don't know if this is gonna happen, like practically speaking, or there will be a deal under the table, or whatever.
Right.
But um, yeah, and I think that we should go through like this, what we call the ceasefire paper, how it's changing from one week to another, how the demands of the Israelis are increasing one day after the other,
Right.
because how the deal started is extremely different to
Mm.
what is it now.
Right.
And we have different cases where the Israelis and the American, like the United States convoy in Lebanon, are dealing with the disarming. For example, the Lebanese army went and like took over different military infrastructures for Hezbollah, but that was not enough for the Israelis. They wanted like to see that this is being destroyed. So it's not about disarming; it's about destroying any power. They
Mm.
even refused that the Lebanese army take over this weapons. They wanted to be completely destroyed. Um, yeah, so it's a bit like narcissistic, I would say.
Okay. Yeah, because I mean, in the West, I mean, in the U.S., it's like most people don't really have a nuanced approach or idea of Hezbollah. Really, like either they think like it's the same as ISIS or something if they're really stupid, or they think it's Hezbollah is great and everything they do is great because they don't really have any understanding of Hezbollah. So I think it's good to have like a perspective on what's actually happening, right?
Like if I want to say something that will help people like a bit understand,
Yeah.
first of all, who is Hezbollah? Hezbollah, I mean, not the organization, the people of
Yep.
Hezbollah. Who are they? They are people from Lebanon who witnessed their villages, their country being attacked by the Israelis, and they grew up witnessing this aggression.
Right.
So they decided to join any resistance groups that's fighting
And that's a natural
this.
that's a
So
natural
it's not that
response. That's a normal
they
response.
exactly, that's 100%. So it's not that they are like ISIS. ISIS are people coming from all over the world to fight somewhere in an unethical way, I would say.
Right.
Uh, on the other hand, Hezbollah is like the fighters of Hezbollah are Lebanese people. They are coming from these villages. They are literally, even in the war, everyone was fighting from his own village, kind of.
Right.
So it's not that they are random people coming to do whatever, like Scary
Exactly.
Movie 3, you know? Like
Right. Exactly. That's
they are
basically,
they are from these villages.
most of the news in the US is kind of out of touch. So yeah, there's a lot of scary, there's a lot of propaganda in the US.
I mean, to me, I definitely have a major problem with how Hezbollah deals domestically.
Exactly.
I definitely have a problem. It's not only me, even Hezbollah supporters themselves have question marks of on how Hezbollah at some point like crosses the red line domestically and like deal in a different way.
Yep.
But when it comes to like when it comes to an occupation, or your land is being stolen or bombed,
Right.
or your people are being massacred, or whatever, it's a different case, and this is what arrives to you as like Western.
Right.
So I think the comparison between Hezbollah and ISIS is cannot apply.
Yep, that's correct. But like I said, the propaganda is so thick in the U.S. and people are so poorly informed about what's going on most of the time. So it's really good. We need to be having more conversations with other people that are organizing in other areas, journalists in other areas, workers in other areas. So it's super important. We have to keep talking to each other and keep hearing about what's going
Sure.
on. Keep organizing. Internationally to
Hmm.
make everybody aware of what's actually going on, because again, the mainstream media a lot of times is not going to do it for us. So that's why we have to have
100%. 100%.
independent media. Well, I really appreciate your time, Jihad. Is there anything else that you want to share or discuss
It's my
before you
pleasure.
go?
I mean, I would like to ask you a question about this, since we're tackling this point.
Yeah.
How, and I'm not talking about Hezbollah. I'm talking about let's say like the resistance in general. How do you see the opinion among people in the West have changed or mobilized from before the 7th of October and after the 7th of October?
Oh, it's huge. It's a huge change. I mean, especially young people in the U.S. are, you know, they are very aware of what's going on. There's also, I mean, there's been large scale protests, especially since Trump took office. There's been protests against Trump. There was like at certain points there was an attempt by some elements there to keep like Palestine solidarity activists out of that group, but I think that's pretty much they've seen that's impossible. Again, because there's so many young people that this is like a primary issue to them is the Palestine solidarity struggle. So it's definitely still has a prominent place. The specific Palestine solidarity demonstrations are not as big as they were like a year ago, like last summer. But it's definitely part of the broader movement in a way that it wasn't before. So that's an important step.
That's what I'm talking about. I think
Yeah.
strategically speaking, this is the most important achievement.
Yep. I agree. I really appreciate your
Amazing.
time. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for getting up early to do this interview.
We rely on you guys on the other side.
I know, I
Actually,
know.
I was saying that we literally rely on you guys on the other side who have opinion that's like close to us.
Right, right.
And I think that you have a major impact in changing the opinion or the political like timeline within the coming years. You have a massive role to do, and we really rely on you. At the time that we're being bombed, there's a job that you have to be doing in the coming not
Oh yeah,
months but years, I guess.
yeah. And I mean, listening too. Like I said, listening to the information, listening to people talk about
100%.
what's going on the ground. Because otherwise, like I said, we're not going to get it from
100%.
the mainstream media. So,
100%.
and obviously, you have an open invitation to reach out to me anytime if there's anything I need to know about. Feel free to let me know.
My pleasure. My
Thank,
pleasure. My pleasure.
thanks so
Thank you so
much.
much for having me, Nick.
Yeah,
It's a
take care.
pleasure,
Have
man.
a good day.